Welcome. I'll be demonstrating primarily the access status screen in the Callisto dashboard in this video. This acts like a bird's eye view across your campus or institution regarding where and what e-resources your users can access. Starting with a simple setup here first, showing only one IP address range of results at a time. Some of our customers are blessed with a simple campus and only have to deal with one IP range for their subscription. So this is what it would look like in your case. Down the left side, it's just an alphabetical list of content providers that Callisto can track. On the right is the most current status it has for this location. The IP range here is indicated above. Yeses and nos are the primary indicator. Yes means when Callisto or a user at that part of your network try to connect to a given resource, can they get access to that subscription system? The labels are in most cases a co-branding identifier that was set up by your library when you first subscribed to a resource. So as an example, I've filtered or searched for BMJ. Notice the label here. When your users from that campus go to that website, you can see right up here at the top, access provided by, and that exact description. So Callisto is automatically extracting that kind of identification from each e-resource provider when it tests it from your campus. Now, a few of the providers that do have an identifying label, it's not always a co-branding identifier. So Britannica Online, for example, doesn't support that, but they do, embedded deeply within the website, they do indicate which subscription number is associated with your IP range when you connect. Your regular users don't care about this, but Callisto was designed to help you find and fix subscription problems. So even in a case like this, 301.225, by itself it's meaningless, but when we look at this from multiple campus IP ranges, if they don't match, we have a problem. And also Callisto will notify you when these change. So if your subscription was correct and that number changes all of a sudden, you know that you need to verify that you still have access to the right content in that provider. So shortly after you set up your Callisto system and it's populated this screen, one of the things you can do is click the label column a couple of times to sort it, and that will bring all these with labels up together, and it's easier to scan through here and see if anything looks wrong. Why? Surprisingly, many times what we find is that a content provider will accidentally wipe out your access and overlap it with some other institution's subscription. So as an example, a large research university like Cornell is typically going to have hundreds or even thousands of titles in some of these providers. But a community college might only have 3 titles. If they, when they set up their subscription, accidentally type in or send a wrong IP list to the provider, some of those providers will blindly overlap the good subscription with the wrong one, and suddenly you'll lose access to, as I said, hundreds or even thousands of titles that you do have. I'll show another example like that on the next screen. The last piece of information on this screen is when we see these numbers in this center column. It's labeled titles. So as one example, I'm going to pull up Anthrosource Notice it says 1 semicolon 33. A double click there, and it launches the list of titles that are recognized within that subscription. Now, what this means varies quite a bit based on the provider. Sometimes there'll be individual journal titles or even ebook titles, but in most cases they are either databases or collections of content. Change the screen to show a different kind of configuration typical of many of our larger institutional customers. Cornell actually has several IP ranges on their campus associated with their subscriptions. So I have 3 different IP ranges being displayed now. The content is the same as before in the simple case, except that now we have the data from 3 locations, and it automatically turns on Callisto's matching algorithm. So the first screen of results here, everything matches and looks good. But as I scroll down, we start to encounter a few things highlighted in red and also indicated here. Instead of an equal sign in the match column, we have the not equal symbol. So if you have multiple IP ranges, this is where Callisto really shines. We developed the system specifically to help solve this kind of problem on the University of Illinois campus that we dealt with personally for years. And there's just no other way to do this kind of troubleshooting without Callisto. Remember, you in your library or wherever your desk is, your machine is located attached to exactly one of your campus IP ranges. But if you have multiple, the chances of some of your e-resources being incorrectly configured goes up dramatically. Even more so if you have added IP ranges in the last few years. So what this lets you do is view your entire institution across all of your e-resources. So, as a couple of examples here to highlight, the most important thing to look for is these cases where you have yeses and nos for the same provider. So we see this here for ICE Virtual Library and Heritage Quest Online. And down below, we have the same problem with Naxos Video Library. So what's happening here? Generally, this means that either the provider themselves messed up, or when you were setting up your subscription, one of the IP ranges got missed. In these 3 cases that we're seeing here, it's this left column that does not have access, and the 2 on the right both do. So, if Heritage Quest or ICE Virtual Library is the kind of provider that lets you, as the librarian, log in and reconfigure your IP ranges, you can fix this yourself. If not, you simply have to contact your customer support at that company and tell them we're missing access on part of our campus. Give them the complete correct list of IPs, and then once they fix it, Callisto, in its routine ongoing scanning, within a few minutes or hours at the most, it should detect that change, and it's going to resolve that in the system. It can even notify you if you have the complete Callisto Pro service. But it will fix it here, resolve that, and then you'll know you're good. Sometimes you have a more subtle situation like this with Ingenta Connect. Notice all 3 columns say yes, and they have even subscriber labels. But what's happened is the central technical services or acquisitions department has purchased a subscription that has several hundred titles in Ingenta. And over here, the Sprecher library is their veterinary medicine library, and they have a subscription independently of that. And yet, the IP ranges for these two subscriptions are not overlapping as they should. Instead, one is wiping out the other, or they're completely separate. So, the effect for this is that certain students and faculty get access to only specific titles within Ingenta based on which part of the network they're in. That might be intentional for licensing reasons, but most cases it's completely accidental, just due to the fact that there are the complexities of different departmental libraries setting up independent subscriptions, and some providers don't handle that very well. And so with Callisto, you can see that. You might not have any other way of even knowing it exists this way until you see this. So, for troubleshooting and supporting your users on campus, knowing this kind of thing is critical, because they may connect. You're talking to them on the phone or by email, someone over in another IP range from you, they can connect and log into Ingenta Connect just fine. But they have different content. The nasty side effect that can happen with this sort of situation is especially with the providers that use pay-per-view models, because depending on which part of campus the user is, they may be denied access to the content you have already paid for, and they're blindly or naively paying yet again for the same content. So, set up Callisto, monitor every IP range on your campus, and scan for this kind of problem. It will save your institution a lot of money over time. And reduce your support load, of course. Another thing you can do if you want to focus just on the mismatches is go to the top here and click the match column. It will bring all of the mismatched rows up to the top so you can see them easily. You can even do a search like this, put less than, greater than, to show only the mismatches, and type the word no, and that will immediately let you focus on those that have some access missing entirely from one or more of your locations. I've reconfigured the system here once again to show our most typical customer configuration. Most of the institutions have just one IP range to manage, but they also tend to have EasyProxy. Callisto can integrate nicely with EasyProxy and has similar features to what I just demonstrated to help you make sure that your EasyProxy server also is providing access to everything you subscribe to. So in this case, what it's doing is comparing the access from your IP range with the access that Callisto sees through the EasyProxy. Now, there are two kinds of configurations with customers in this regard. If your EasyProxy server is located inside the same IP range that you are tracking, then theoretically they should be exact matches everywhere, and any mismatch that occurs means that it has to do with the configuration file in EasyProxy. If you're involved with EasyProxy, you know that it's possible to have a website, domain, or host name missing, and so when the user tries to visit that resource, it will simply send them directly to it instead of proxying that website. And so in that case, if they're off campus, they'll be denied access. So you'd want to look for cases like this ASHA journals where you have a yes at the IP range and a no on the right. Now in the case that we're looking at here, it's more complicated than that, because the Easy Proxy server here is not located in the same IP range as the left side column. Therefore, it's possible to have the opposite effect, like this or this, where they both have access but different subscriptions recognized.